He missed the flight that should have changed his life. For 30 years, he wondered what became of her. Tonight, at Gate 17, a voice from the past calls his name. What she says will break his heart and give it hope. The automatic glass doors slid open, and Michael Lawrence stepped into the arrivals hall of Lambert St. Louis International Airport. The same cool rush of recycled air hit his face, just like it had on that night 30 years ago. His shoes echoed against the polished floor as he walked slowly, eyes scanning the terminal, not for a flight, not for a gate, for a ghost. He looked older than his 69 years. Life had etched lines across his face like a map of decisions made and regrets never spoken. He wore a dark navy coat, a scarf neatly tied around his neck, and clutched a weathered envelope in one hand. A cane supported his right leg, injured in a fall last winter. But it wasn't the cold that made him shiver. It was the weight of the past. The airport was quiet for a Tuesday night. Flights delayed, passengers murmuring, announcements garbled. But Michael wasn't here to travel. He hadn't flown in years. He sat down near Gate 17, the same gate she'd waited at. His eyes glazed over. That day had come like a thunderstorm. Summer of 1995. He was 39, newly divorced, a teacher back then, weary of routines, aching for something more. Her name was Evelyn, red hair, green coat, the kind of woman who could quiet a room with her smile. They met by accident at a bookstore, spent months in stolen weekends, late-night phone calls, dreams of starting over. And then, the plan. She'd bought 2 tickets to Portland, a fresh beginning. She'd wait for him at the gate. He promised he'd be there, but he never showed. He never told anyone why. Now, decades later, something had brought him back to this place. Something in his gut, or maybe the letter. He unfolded the envelope carefully. Yellowed edges, her handwriting unmistakable. To Michael, if you ever open this, I hope it's not too late. His fingers trembled. He hadn't opened it the day she gave it to him. He couldn't. Too much guilt. Too many questions. And now? Why now? Because some stories don't let go. Because even after all these years, Evelyn still lived in the hollow part of his chest. A sudden wave of emotion washed over him. The noise of the airport faded. The chair beneath him felt miles away. His heart pounded like it had something urgent to say. He looked around. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. New signs, brighter screens. But Gate 17 was still Gate 17, and time, it seemed, had waited for this moment. A family passed by, laughing. A flight attendant rolled her bag, heels clicking. Somewhere, a child cried. Michael sat perfectly still. He was no longer here to chase the past. He was waiting for something he couldn't explain, or someone. The year was 1995. Airports still carried the scent of cigarette smoke and coffee-stained newspapers. There were no smartphones, no noise-canceling headphones. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the quiet ache of waiting. Michael stood near the entrance of Terminal B, clutching his carry-on and scanning the crowd. He hadn't traveled in years, not since his honeymoon, which had ended in silence and betrayal. But this wasn't a business trip or a vacation. This was escape. He had one ticket, one chance, one woman waiting. Evelyn. He still remembered the first time he saw her, curled up in the poetry aisle of a secondhand bookstore, reading Dylan Thomas aloud to herself. That voice, low, lyrical, magnetic. He couldn't stop listening. They spoke for an hour that day and for every day after that. She was different, fiercely alive. No small talk, no pretending. She asked him what he feared the most, and then told him hers. Staying stuck in a life I don't love. She was bold like that. She kissed him first. She planned their getaway. "We'll start fresh," she whispered the night they made the decision. "Portland. I found a place by the water. I don't care about anything else as long as you're there." And now, she was waiting at gate 17, green coat buttoned tight, holding 2 tickets. She stood near the window, watching the planes come and go, her red hair pulled into a soft twist, a nervous tremble in her hand as she checked her watch. Again. Michael was late. Not terribly late, but late enough for her to wonder. She bit her lip, heart pacing. Maybe he'd gotten stuck in traffic. Maybe he was parking. Maybe he was scared. She clutched her purse tighter. Inside was a letter, handwritten at 3 a.m., sealed and addressed to Michael. Just in case. Just in case he didn't come. Just in case she never saw him again. She'd poured everything into that letter. Her doubts, her fears. The real reason she wanted to leave St. Louis behind. And the thing she hadn't yet told him. That she might be pregnant. She closed her eyes, breathed. The boarding call came. Passengers lined up. She stood to the side, eyes fixed on the hallway beyond security. Still no Michael. 5 minutes. 4. 3. She stepped forward, then back. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. And then, the final call. "All passengers for Flight 183 to Portland, please proceed to Gate 17 immediately. Final boarding." She waited until the very last moment, scanning every face, every figure, and then, nothing. Her chest tightened. She looked down at the tickets in her hand, then at the empty seat beside her. Michael wasn't coming. She swallowed the lump in her throat, gave the attendant 1 ticket, and walked down the jet bridge alone. Outside, the rain began to fall. Back in the terminal, Michael stood just past security, frozen. Watching the plane roll away, he hadn't moved, couldn't. Something had stopped him, something he never told her. Michael sat in the terminal like a man trapped between centuries. The world had changed in the 30 years since Evelyn walked down that jet bridge. But the paper in his hands hadn't. It was still the same letter she'd slipped into his jacket pocket that night. The paper was soft and brittle now, edges curled, ink faded just slightly. Her handwriting, though, it was still hers, slanted, graceful, confident. The way she used to read poetry aloud on rainy afternoons. He'd carried the envelope with him all this time. Through every move, every heartbreak, every morning he woke wondering where she was. But he never opened it. He couldn't. He told himself there was no point, that the past was the past, that nothing she could have written would change what he did or didn't do. But that wasn't true. The truth was, he was afraid. Afraid of what the letter might say. Afraid of hearing, in her words, the final goodbye he never had the courage to face. And yet, here he was. Tonight was different. Something in the air, in the rhythm of the airport. A kind of pull he couldn't explain. Maybe it was time. Maybe it was fate. His fingers trembled as he broke the seal. The paper crackled as he unfolded it, the scent of lavender, her scent, drifting faintly from the page. He read, "Michael, if you're reading this, then you didn't come. And I need you to know, I'm not angry. I'm heartbroken, yes, but not angry. We don't get to choose the people we fall in love with, but we do choose whether we run toward it or away. I saw something in you that I hadn't seen in years, a man who still believed in second chances. I believed in ours. But maybe you were right to stay. Maybe we would have burned out just as fast as we started. Maybe the past was too heavy for both of us. Still, if you ever wonder where I went or who I became, know this. I never stopped thinking about you. And if one day, by some miracle, we cross paths again, I'll be the woman in the green coat, waiting. Love always, Evelyn. Michael stared at the page, his vision blurring. She had waited. Not just that night, somehow he knew. She had waited in her heart for far longer. He brought the letter to his lips, closed his eyes, and let the silence speak. A slow tear rolled down his cheek. He whispered her name, once, twice, like a prayer or a regret too deep to bury. And then, something strange happened. The airport speaker crackled, and the voice that came through wasn't robotic or rushed. It was soft, human, familiar. Michael Lawrence, if you're in the terminal, please come to gate 17. He froze. Impossible. But the voice, he knew that voice. It couldn't be? Could it? Michael's cane tapped unevenly against the linoleum as he rose to his feet. Gate 17 hadn't changed much. New screens, new paint, maybe. But the bones were the same wide windows facing the tarmac, the same cold steel benches, the same soft hum of people arriving, leaving, colliding like stars on separate paths. But tonight, Michael wasn't just passing through. He was walking back into a memory. Every step toward gate 17 was like peeling back time. His eyes scanned the terminal, not for the flight display, but for signs that he hadn't lost his mind. That voice, it couldn't be. 30 years had passed. She could be anywhere, a different city, a different life, a different name. But that voice? He walked slower, breathing shallow, as if afraid to break whatever spell he had stepped into. He passed a coffee stand. Gone was the old newspaper kiosk where they'd once stood and argued about whether Neruda was overrated. He passed the bench where Evelyn had tied her shoe and laughed at the laces breaking. That laugh. He could still hear it, but it wasn't nostalgia he was chasing. It was her. The gate appeared ahead. Gate 17. The seats were half full. A flight was boarding, but no one called his name again. There were only murmurs, headphones, cell phones, indifference. Michael looked around. A woman in her 20s glanced up and offered him her seat. He nodded in thanks but remained standing. Then the strangest thing. He smelled lavender. Not the artificial kind from soaps or sprays. No. This was hers. That faint floral trace she used to dab behind her ears. He'd forgotten it, or thought he had. But in this moment, it came back sharp and clear, like a photograph suddenly in focus. He turned. No one there. Only the echo of memories pressing in around him. He sat down slowly, rested his cane, closed his eyes. And then, his name again. This time not over the speaker. Closer. Michael? His eyes snapped open. He turned toward the sound. But there was no one. He blinked. A figure had passed by. He caught only the back, shoulders straight, hair a soft chestnut red, a green coat brushing gently against her calves as she walked toward the window. No, it couldn't be. Could it? He stood again, faster than his body allowed, heart pounding like it had 30 years ago. He followed her. She was facing the runway, back still turned, unmoving. His voice cracked. "Evelyn?" The woman turned, slowly. His breath caught. The woman turned, and for a second, the world held its breath. She wasn't Evelyn. She was younger, maybe in her 40s. Her eyes widened at Michael's question, clearly startled, then softened with empathy as she took in his hopeful, broken expression. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "My name's Claire." Michael blinked. The hope drained from his face like color from a photograph. He apologized quietly and stepped back, his cane unsteady beneath him. Claire smiled kindly. "Are you looking for someone?" He hesitated. I thought. He couldn't finish the sentence. Claire gave him a nod that said she understood more than she let on, then walked away. He returned to the bench near gate 17 and sat heavily, heart thudding, not with anticipation now, but with the dull ache of embarrassment, disappointment, and something worse, foolishness. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, eyes down. What had he expected? That after 3 decades she'd just appear? Then the lights flickered, once, twice, and suddenly the terminal dimmed. A moment later, the announcement came over the speakers, this time with full static and confusion. Attention all passengers. Due to an unexpected power disruption, all outbound flights are temporarily delayed. Please remain in the terminal for updates. The murmur of frustration rolled through the terminal like a distant wave. People sighed, checked their phones, stood to stretch. Some sat back down, resigned to wait. But Michael, he looked up. The emergency lights bathed the airport in a dim, golden hue. The old glow. The kind of lighting he remembered from that night in '95. Soft, flickering, almost cinematic. He felt it again, the pull, the sense that something was coming. He stood slowly and turned to look toward the far end of the terminal, where the older gates still remained. Less modern, less crowded, more forgotten. Something called to him from there. He walked with cautious purpose, gripping his cane, his breath growing shallow but steady. He passed an old vending machine, its lights dead, a magazine rack collecting dust. The world felt suspended, like time itself had decided to take a breath. He reached the final gate. Gate 22. Empty, silent. He looked around, heart pounding with a strange, inexplicable certainty. And then he heard it. Michael. Clear, soft, right behind him. He turned. But again, no one. The air felt heavy, electric. His vision shimmered for a moment. And then a different sound echoed. A memory. Laughter. His own, mixed with hers. Years ago, her voice whispering about the life they'd have, the smell of rain on concrete, the way she'd hold his arm like he was the only steady thing in her world. He stepped back, overwhelmed. And just then, out of nowhere, a gate agent appeared. She looked oddly familiar, older, graceful, a badge clipped to her blouse, her eyes locked onto his. "Mr. Lawrence?" she asked. His breath caught again. "Yes," he said. The woman gave a small smile. "There's someone waiting to see you." Michael gripped the back of a nearby chair to steady himself. "Who?" But the agent didn't answer. She simply pointed toward the hall that led back to gate 17. The lights flickered once more. Michael turned and began walking. The hallway back to gate 17 felt longer now, as if the walls themselves stretched with every step Michael took. He leaned into his cane, trying to keep his breath steady. His heart, however, had other plans, pounding with a rhythm that hadn't visited him in decades. People moved in slow motion. A mother soothing her toddler, a businessman typing frantically on a laptop, an elderly couple sharing a sandwich in silence. Life, in all its ordinariness, pulsed around him. But Michael felt anything but ordinary. He kept his eyes forward. The smell of coffee drifted through the air, mingling with the faint scent of disinfectant and tired perfume. Somewhere nearby, someone sneezed. Another voice called out for a final boarding group. And then, "Michael?" The voice wasn't over the intercom. It wasn't a whisper from his memory. It was real, feminine, familiar, alive. He stopped mid-step, turned. The crowd moved. A man stepped aside. A child ducked under a rolling suitcase. And there she was, standing still in the middle of gate 17, green coat. Same deep eyes. Hair more silver now, gathered in a loose bun. Fine lines around her mouth. But the same mouth. The same soul. Time had changed her, but not erased her. Evelyn. Michael stared. His lips parted. But no words came. She took one step closer. Her hands trembled at her sides, barely visible beneath her sleeves. Her eyes shimmered. "Is it really you?" she asked, her voice fragile and full. He nodded, slowly, still not trusting the moment. I wasn't sure you'd remember me," she said, her smile wobbling. "I've remembered you every day," he replied, the words raw and honest, scraped from the deepest part of him. Evelyn blinked quickly, as if trying to keep the tears at bay. I heard your name. They said you were here. I thought maybe it was a mistake, that I was hearing things. So did I." The noise of the terminal vanished between them, like the world had stepped aside to let them breathe. Michael stepped forward, then paused, unsure. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She closed the distance, reached out, took his hand. It was the same hand she had once kissed under a bookstore lamp, the same hand that had held hers in secret. And now, after years, miles, and heartaches, it was hers again. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The silence between them was full of everything that had been left unsaid, the apologies, the pain, the what-ifs, and yet, beneath it all, there was something else, something warm, something still alive. The green coat was unmistakable, not just because of the color, a rich forest shade that made her hair look even redder under the soft airport lights, but because of what it represented. Michael remembered the way it used to brush against her thighs when she walked, the way it smelled faintly of her lavender perfume and old library books. It was the same coat she wore the night he didn't show. And now, Evelyn stood in it again, holding his hand like it had never left hers. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Their eyes did all the work, searching, measuring, trembling with the weight of the years that had passed. Finally, Evelyn broke the silence. "I never got rid of this coat," she said quietly, her fingers grazing the edge of one sleeve. "I told myself I was just being sentimental, but the truth is, I couldn't let it go." Michael swallowed hard. "I saw you," he said, his voice rough with age and regret. "That night, through the glass. I was there, I just couldn't walk through." She tilted her head, her expression soft but unreadable. "Why?" He looked down. Shame settled in his chest like a second heartbeat. "I got a call just as I was about to go through security. It was my father. He'd had a stroke. I didn't even think. I turned around and drove straight to the hospital." Her mouth opened slightly. "I wanted to call you," he continued, "to explain. But I didn't have your number. You just changed apartments. All I had was that letter. And then days passed, then weeks, and then 30 years, she whispered. Michael nodded slowly. "I kept that letter," he said. "I opened it for the first time tonight." Evelyn looked down, her lips pressing into a line. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled something out, a folded piece of paper, soft and yellowing at the edges. She handed it to him. He unfolded it. It was a photo, the two of them in the bookstore. She was laughing. He was looking at her like the rest of the world didn't exist. "I kept this," she said, her voice thin. "Even when I moved, even when I tried to move on, I couldn't throw it away." Michael stared at the photo. "You look the same," he murmured. "I feel older," she replied. "But with you standing here, it's like I never left. I was afraid to find you," he said. "I was afraid you wouldn't want to." Silence fell again, but it was a different kind of silence, not the hollow kind, the kind that held warmth, history, hope. He touched the sleeve of her coat gently. "You waited," he said. She nodded. "Not always, but part of me always hoped, even if I'd never say it out loud." Michael blinked slowly. "What happens now?" Evelyn smiled. "That depends. Do you still believe in second chances?" He didn't answer with words. He simply stepped forward and rested his forehead against hers. And for a moment there was no airport, no 30 years, no unanswered questions, just two people and one green coat. They sat together near gate 17, their hands still gently intertwined. The hum of the terminal returned. Boarding announcements, rolling suitcases, distant footsteps, but none of it reached them. For Evelyn and Michael, time had folded into itself. There were no clocks, only their breath, only their eyes, only the weight of everything they hadn't said. Michael spoke first. "I used to come here sometimes, not often, maybe once a year. I'd sit here and just imagine what would have happened if I had gotten on that flight." Evelyn tilted her head. "I never knew that." "I didn't know how to find you," he said quietly. "And I thought maybe you didn't want to be found." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she pulled her hand away gently and reached into her bag. She handed him a small, worn notebook. "I used to write letters to you," she said. "Even after that night, I never sent them. But I kept them." He opened the notebook slowly, flipping through pages filled with her handwriting. Dates from 1996, 1998, 2001. A letter every few years, sometimes more. Some short, some long, all full of questions, all full of him. He stopped at one dated March 3rd, 2004. "Michael, I don't know if you're still in St. Louis, or if you even remember me the way I remember you. But I keep thinking about the way you used to look at me when I read aloud. Like I was telling you something no one else could hear. I wonder if anyone looks at me like that anymore. I wonder if I'd still recognize your voice." Michael closed the notebook and looked at her. "I should have tried harder," he whispered. Evelyn smiled faintly. "I should have waited longer." He shook his head. "You waited long enough." She exhaled deeply and leaned back in the chair, her eyes staring up at the fluorescent lights above them. "I never married," she said. He blinked. "Why not?" "No one ever made me feel what you did," she answered plainly. "And the ones who came close, well, I didn't want close." Michael felt the words settle into his chest like rain on dry earth. "I married again," he admitted. "Didn't last. I think I always kept a space open for you, even if I didn't admit it to myself." Evelyn looked at him for a long time. "You know," she said gently, "I thought I was going crazy when I heard your name over the speaker tonight." "You weren't," he smiled. "Neither of us were." They sat there for a while, quiet again. Then Evelyn looked down, almost shyly. "Michael, there's something else." He straightened. She reached for her bag again, pulled out another envelope, this one newer, sealed and blank. "I thought if I ever saw you again, I'd tell you in person. But I didn't know if I could, so I wrote it down." Michael held the envelope, heavier than it looked. "What is it?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "The real reason I left St. Louis after that night." He looked at her, then down at the envelope. His fingers curled around it tightly. He wasn't sure if he was ready for what it contained, but he knew he needed to know. Michael held the envelope in his lap, fingers tracing its edges. It felt too light for how heavy it seemed. He looked at Evelyn, whose hands now rested in her lap, eyes lowered. There was no tension in her posture, but her stillness said everything. With a deep breath, he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once, no photo, no trinket, just words. Michael, if you're reading this, I'm standing in front of you. And that alone means the universe gave us a miracle. There's no easy way to say what I've carried for 30 years. But I owe it to both of us to speak it out loud. After you didn't show up, I boarded the plane alone. I cried the whole flight. But something inside me said to keep going. I made it to Portland. I started over. I found work. I made friends. But I didn't go alone. 3 weeks after that night, I found out I was pregnant. His name is Nathan. He's 29, and he has your eyes. I didn't tell you because I didn't know how. I was angry, hurt. Then the years passed, and the silence grew. But I always told him you were someone kind, someone I once loved deeply. He doesn't know I'm here tonight. I came to St. Louis to visit my sister. I had no plans to see you. But then your name echoed across the terminal, and the past came rushing back. Michael, you have a son, and he has questions. Michael's hands trembled as he finished reading. He didn't move for a long time. Couldn't. He turned to her slowly. You had a child, he said. My child. Evelyn nodded, her eyes glassy. Yes, and you raised him alone. I did. Michael's voice cracked. Does he know about me? I told him what I could, she whispered. That you were someone I once loved, and that you didn't know. He pressed his hand against his mouth, holding back the wave of grief and joy and disbelief crashing inside him. Where is he now? He asked. Portland. He's a teacher, like you were. He's good, Michael. He's thoughtful. He asks about you more often now that he's older, but I never gave him details. I didn't want to give him false hope. Michael stared at the floor, eyes burning. His voice was barely a whisper. I missed everything. Evelyn placed her hand gently on his arm. But you're here now. He looked at her, heart swelling with something bigger than words. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, she said. But if you want to, I can give you his number. You could write, or call, or maybe visit. Michael closed his eyes for a long moment, then opened them again. Yes, he said, with a voice that didn't shake. Please, I want to meet him. Evelyn smiled, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. Then let's make that happen. And for the first time in 30 years, Michael felt something new. Not guilt, not longing, hope. The plane to Portland was boarding, and this time, Michael had a ticket. The airline agent had helped him transfer his unused voucher, an odd relic from a business trip he never took, onto tonight's flight. It felt symbolic somehow. A full circle. A missed journey now made whole. Evelyn stood beside him at the gate, her green coat buttoned against the chill of the late flight. She clutched a small envelope in her hand. Nathan's contact information, folded around a photo of him as a boy. Michael had stared at it for 10 minutes earlier, memorizing the curve of the child's smile. A smile that felt hauntingly familiar. I called him, she said, voice steady. Told him I was bringing someone home. Michael looked over at her. How did he sound? Quiet, curious, maybe nervous. Me too, he replied. They both laughed softly, the kind of laughter that carries exhaustion, relief, and something brighter beneath it all. As they approached the gate, the attendant smiled. First time flying together? Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. Yes and no. They stepped down the jet bridge side by side. The moment Michael entered the plane, a rush of emotion hit him like cabin pressure. He remembered every reason he hadn't taken that flight 30 years ago. The fear, the uncertainty, the weight of responsibility. But also, he now realized, his lack of belief that he deserved something better. Tonight, he was boarding not to escape, but to arrive. He found his seat and looked out the window as Evelyn settled beside him. The terminal lights blurred slightly, more from his eyes than the glass. When the plane began to taxi, she reached for his hand. "No turning back now," she whispered. "I don't want to," he answered. As the aircraft lifted into the air, Michael looked out over the city that had held his guilt and longing for so long. Below, the lights of St. Louis shimmered like tiny apologies. Above, only stars. It was quiet as they ascended. Then Evelyn broke the silence. "What are you going to say to him?" Michael took a deep breath. "I don't know. But I think I'll start with, 'Hi, I'm your father. I've been waiting a long time to meet you.'" She smiled through her tears. "Good," she whispered. "That's a good start." And somewhere over the clouds, as the seatbelt light blinked off, Michael Lawrence took the flight he was always meant to take. Not to escape, but to begin. Some flights take off late, some reunions arrive when the heart is finally ready, and sometimes the people we thought were lost to time find their way back, exactly when we need them most. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever wondered about someone from your past, or if you believe in second chances, tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. Please consider supporting this channel by clicking the Super Thanks button below. It's a small gesture that makes a huge difference in helping us keep telling these emotional, unforgettable stories. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that might just change your day or your heart. And now, if you're still with us, we have another beautiful story waiting for you, right here on the screen. Click and watch the next video. Because sometimes the next chapter begins when you least expect it.